The four sons of Horus are often depicted atop a blue water lily or lotus flower, as in this scene from the Egyptian Book of the Dead. This may seem puzzling, but the underlying celestial archetype provides a simple explanation. The Wheel of Heaven was also the underlying form of the plant of life. Mars is now the center of the flower, and the plasma streamers from Venus are interpreted to be petals. The petals of the plant carried the same symbolism as the spokes of the wheel. That is, each petal was a single godlike being. When the wheel-like configuration had four spokes, the plant had four petals, which gave rise to the four sons of Horus, the four heavenly kings, the four winds, and so forth. The flower, as did the wheel, itself became the form for the council of the gods. The Martian god sat within the petals of the flower, representing his cohort of subordinate gods. Over time, the number of spokes and petals of the wheel or plant changed, depending upon the electrical environment, as physicist Wal Thornhill explains.
They were plasma discharge streamers stretching between planets. He explained that in a radial electric discharge, both the number of streamers and their concrete form will change with the intensity of the discharge.
Four spokes or petals, for example, became 8, from which the Egyptian Ennead was derived. Ennead denotes a grouping of 9, counting Ra or Mars in the center and the 8 petals or subsidiary gods. This makes a group of 9 gods. This was another variation of the Heavenly Council. At one point in time, there were 12 plasma jets flaring out from the planet Venus. This would account for the 12 Olympian gods and the Christian version of the 12 apostles. The depictions of the 12 apostles on both cathedral domes preserves the original archetype of spokes or petals encircling a central figure. "24 plasma streams must also have been common, based upon the importance attached to the number throughout the ancient world. At the center of the national flag of India is the Ashoka Chakra, a 24-spoked version of the ancient Wheel of Dharma, sacred to Buddhism. The concept of time with 24 hours in a day is certainly an artifact of the ancient Wheel of Time, based upon the cosmic wheel. This sundial, believed to be the oldest in the world, is a half-circle partitioned into 12 sections for measuring time between sunrise and sunset. The gnomon filled the hole at the bottom. Of course, this would make the day 24 hours if the 12 sections for sunset to sunrise were included. Paolo Uccello's version of the 24-hour clock in the Cathedral of Florence preserves the ancient imagery of the plant of life. John's vision of the 24 elders followed this ancient and worldwide pattern. The stained glass window from this French cathedral draws upon the plant of life archetype, where each elder is portrayed as a petal of a rose. The Apostle John's description of the elders maintains the characteristics of the ancient council of the gods in the heavens. Like the blazing white petals of the plant of life, so too the raiment of the elders was white. Their gold crowns are a reflection of the intersection between the end of the petal, that is the head of the elder, and the background of the golden Saturn. John's Heavenly Council of Elders finds parallels in the organization of priesthood quorums. We have already noted that the 12 apostles followed the pattern of the 12-spoked wheel or the 12-petaled flower. The 12 apostles constitute a quorum, often called a council. The quorum of deacons, like the apostles, were comprised of 12 priesthood holders with that office. The quorum of teachers, like John's elders, is composed of 24 teachers. King David organized the priests of Solomon's temple into 24 courses. The quorum of priests consists of 48 members holding that office. Elders in the Melchizedek priesthood form a quorum of 96 members. The number of each quorum was not only a multiple of 12, but was also a derivative of the number of streamers discharging between Venus and Saturn. But the quorum structure of priesthood organization was more than the use of sacred numbers. The archetype of the heavenly council required a primary personage within the midst of his subordinate gods or priests. John's elders surrounded God the Father on his throne. God stood amidst the noble spirits in Abraham's premortal council. So too with the quorums. Each quorum president was required to sit in council with the members of his quorum. While the archetype behind John's vision of the 24 elders explains what the apostles saw, it doesn't explain what his vision meant. For the answer to this question, we turn to Joseph Smith. The prophet specifically asked the Lord for the meaning of the 24 elders. The Lord told Joseph they were faithful elders from the 7 churches who had died and were currently in paradise, awaiting their reward. We know from their crowns that in addition to being elders, they were kings. As John described them later in his Apocalypse, they were kings and priests unto God. In other words, they had received their second anointing, and their calling and election had been made sure. This will be discussed more fully in a future episode.